Tuesday, January the 7th, 9 p.m. in the DMV.
And 6 p.m. here in Los Angeles. I'm Jack Armstrong.
I'm Sam Giacinto, and you're listening to Tech Talk Live. Welcome to the show. Chat or call in with your tech news. And again, lots to talk about this week. Not just always, but since it's CES, the Consumer Electronics Show is underway. And we have some pretty exciting announcements to kick us off. Really, as of yesterday.
Yeah,
quite the splash.
Well, sure. Are you talking about Nvidia's personal AI computer? Are you
I
referring to
am.
that?
We have to talk about Project Digits. And it's kind of interesting. If you have any ideas of what to call it, Jensen Huang said to forward you your name, the naming ideas. But in short, it's a Mac Mini-sized GB10 super chip, a new Nvidia quote-unquote super chip, combining a GPU and CPU with 128 gigabytes of working memory and up to 4 terabytes of solid-state storage that will sit on your desk and kind of act as a edge AI, sort of edge AI computer, which will basically be able to run local models. It supports the entire NVIDIA development platform. So whether that be image generation or classification or large language models, or really whatever you'd like to run off of their DGX is kind of the name of the software platform. But it's essentially an AI quote unquote supercomputer that fits on your desk, starting at $3,000. Whether it's a good value or not remains yet to be seen. There's a lot of big question marks as far as kind of what the memory bandwidth, for example, is something a lot of people have been talking about. It's a huge limitation for running models. So a lot of unknowns. But again, just to remind viewers, I mean, something with 128 gigabytes of GPU accessible, that's being the key term, GPU accessible. Most video cards top out at 16, 24 if you've got a little bit extra cash. But previously, the only way to really get this much unified memory was a MacBook Pro for more or less around $6,000. So the value proposition is there, as something that, is, potentially for a small business or prosumer, starting at 3,000 may not be the worst thing.
Well, so this seems most useful, though, if you're going to be training your own models or trying to do your own local AI, because if you truly need that power, like you don't even really need that power for gaming. I mean, right? Like this is more for generating, I mean, maybe like AI video or things locally, right? This is more like
no, yeah, this is not for gaming. I mean, I guess it technically is a Linux workstation at the end of the day. I mean, I guess you could game on it. It's not really for it, but there's nothing stopping you. I think we'll probably see a few crazy YouTubers try and run something on it. I don't think it's necessarily the I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily a gaming computer per se, especially with I mean, again, the big question mark is going to be the memory bandwidth. So probably on the higher end, GPUs, which we haven't even dove into yet, um, it will probably be a slower, um, at least a slower memory bandwidth than the 5090, for example. So maybe for gaming, not optimal, but um, I mean, it's again, it's a single power cord AI basically brick that sits on your desk, and really, it's quite it's quite powerful for what it is, but also a lot kind of remains to be seen, as far as you know I guess the big question mark is kind of how this is all going to hook in together, with that memory
Yeah.
bandwidth being the biggest question.
Hmm.
But you can run huge models, so essentially, if you wanted to run llama 3.1, for example, this is something you would need five 48 gigabyte GPUs for, traditionally. Whereas with this, you know, basically AI desk supercomputer, you can buy two of them, link them together, um, and essentially double, kind of have your little AI cluster, which is 256 gigabytes of video memory available for these models. So that's kind of like, for $6,000, you have something that more or less would cost you 10 times as much. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you buy like, again, because we're talking about like, you know, the RTX 5000 or 6000 series, cards. I mean, these are, $5,000 video cards, alone. So basically, for the price of, you know, two of these things, um, you know, it's it's quite insane. I mean, to be honest, really really something. Um, so I don't know, really what the implications are, but it's a huge accessibility boost for, um, you know, being able to have, AI, um, present,
Yeah,
sort
so
of in
I'm
more
just
edge
thinking,
cases.
yeah, most people probably won't need such a thing. This isn't even in the same scope as a VR headset or AR glasses. Like these are more useful things, right? Where I'm not saying this is not useful, but to your average person, they're not going to need or appreciate the power that comes in something like this type of personal digits AI processing like device, that most people aren't going to just be hooking GPUs to their laptops to power models, so I guess it is pretty cool, but like we haven't really seen this compatibility before. Like this is a brand new type of device that people I guess didn't really know they might have needed. So it's a nice option, but it still is a little confusing even to me after reading about it how people are going to even use something like this. And I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but like so when you pay for cloud GPUs, you could technically, if you're already paying for cloud GPUs and you know that this type of device could, I guess, handle some of that, then maybe if you're already paying for GPU cloud power, maybe it makes sense to, instead of paying those monthly subscriptions based on your usage and sending things to the cloud, maybe it does make sense to handle it locally. So if you're already, I mean, for lack of a better thing, just because I do it and I'm familiar with the AI upscaling capabilities. So, I mean, maybe if you're always upscaling and you send things to the cloud and you have to pay monthly fees to do that, maybe that's part of your work or whatever you do. Like, I guess if you're sending things to a cloud GPU, now maybe you can handle some of that locally. So, if I guess that's probably a good use case, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, no, and that's the big game changer, right? It's data privacy, right? So if you are naturally, suspicious of the cloud in that way, that's a huge selling point. Uh, you know, Data privacy, keeping it all within your own network. And there's again, this supports the full Nvidia sort of software suite. So what does that mean, right? So basically, you're able to deploy a lot of these quote unquote NVIDIA blueprints. And blueprints sort of architect a sort of an AI use case. So, for example, building a video search and summarization agent. You could run that. You could run your own PDF data extraction tool for, basically a massive volume of PDF files that you have that you want to extract data from. You can, you know, run your own physics simulations for, 3D models. You can create your own AI virtual assistant to run your small business. So it kind of takes everything. Again, as you said, you technically could, again, do all this in the cloud, but this brings it really right to your desktop in a way, and to your business. So it kind of
Yeah.
it lifts that functionality and gives you a really potent option for deploying, really all of the stuff uh, on your local network. And that's kind of the big, really the big benefit of this. And that's kind of like the killer app. And as you said, it's like, I don't think people know they need this yet. This is very exciting. I mean, I'm putting my name in. Um, I'm honestly seriously considering getting one because it's just sort of like, I mean, this is it. I mean, this is the most powerful AI computer you can buy for that amount of money. And at this point, it's something again you can do completely on your own network with your own data, with your own, it's the cutting edge of what you're able to do, without the cloud. And
So you
just
view this as instead of paying for, let's say, ChatGPT, you could, or whatever model you want, you view it as like you could run local open source models that are very powerful and the latest and greatest on your little computer versus paying $20 a month for a subscription.
absolutely. And honestly, I mean, even some of these use cases, right? Like for example, like PDF data extraction. We're talking hundreds, if not thousands, of files. I don't know, with ChatGPT, I mean, there's limitations on, how much you can actually upload or use, as far as, storage, or just sort of like, you know, um, how many files you can have in a context or a workspace without paying for additional sort of utilization. But
Yeah.
with ChatGPT Pro being, $200 a month, this is something where it's just sort of like, um, again, the scale and sort of functionality of this, from a hardware perspective, that's the limiting factor for a lot of these use cases, is that, well, there's no, again, like you can do all this locally, but it's a massive computer that costs $10,000-$20,000, and this sort of democratizes it and says, hey, like we're offering, pretty much the whole package that can run on one power cord for 3,000. So it makes it that much more accessible. I mean, it cuts the price by a third,
Sure.
makes
I
it a
can see
third
that.
of the price, and
But
it basically enables, all of this stuff that was previously kind of locked behind that paywall, if you will.
it's funny we're talking about data extraction and local models. I've recently seen this software called Socrates, and it's a and there's a lot of research tools like similar to this, that might be useful for lawyers or researchers or whoever who need to find summaries from local PDF documents that are long and they don't want to upload it to a server. So um I don't know. From my understanding, this doesn't take a lot of processing power. I mean, maybe if you want to do a ton of documents all at once and you can't go one by one, I mean, I'm sure there's a use case for that, but I do know that with this tool, there's something called OCR. And so that's basically taking, I guess you would say, like, um, how do I say this? An image. So like a PDF is an image, right? So it is character recognition, optical character recognition. So it's taking from the image, recognizing the characters. And I mean, I do get it. That does take a lot of processing power. And, when you're searching documents and it has to, again, recognize the text, and then it has to understand the text, and then it has to process the text, and then when you chat with the PDF that's maybe 100 pages, that's taking a lot of processing. So i I mean, I can just tell you that this software specifically is able to run on an M2 computer, an M2 Mac. So I mean, I do think they recommend having 16 gigabytes or more of memory, but I mean, I kind of feel like the Nvidia GPU would be more powerful for like image and video generation than personally research PDFs. But that's just myself. So, but yeah, it is fascinating we're having this conversation because I recently found this tool, the Socrates tool, for answering. But I don't know. Like, look, I don't have a use case for frequently going through that many PDFs. I mean, is this really something that a lot of people do all the time? Like, is this a huge, like, is that really resource intensive to the point where, there might be enterprises that get these computers, just these AI computers, just to do like OCR processing, those the optical character recognition type of AI. What do you think
Well,
that's
and
a big enough?
that's, I mean, again, from a business perspective, right? I mean, you have, essentially, um, we're talking about, I mean, document stores in the millions of, because think about it. I mean, the longer that an organization or entity exists, the more data it creates. And in that case, you have an entity that's been around for 20, 50 years. All of these PDFs are just sitting in a box somewhere at this point. Maybe somebody's saving them. But they contain really, real insight, whereas, they're kind of locked away behind the fact that it's hard to, um, it's hard to really, like, where do you even know where to look, in a sense? I mean, there's thousands and millions of documents. So this is for businesses and organizations. I think this use case is especially relevant, because you have a lot of data, and little to no organizational knowledge or context to it. And that's the golden sauce right there, is sort of, let's take something that is an ill-structured pile of data and turn it into something where it's like, I'm having this problem. what can I do about it? And it's like, oh, well, in 1978, there was a similar issue with XYZ. Here's how it was ultimately resolved. And it's just sort of like, oh, okay, given, and it sort of shortens that into something that you can use, as a tool versus just a pile of PDFs, which I think a lot of organizations struggle
Well,
with.
sure.
I mean, this isn't just your home hard drive. I mean, we're talking about, hundreds and hundreds of pages um, of documentation. I mean, millions of pages of documentation. Um, that organizations have, and I can't pretend to have that much data. Um, but this is a very real problem, I think, for a lot of entities. I mean, it's
Hmm. Well, I can see that. I mean, I can see that a little bit, but I don't know. I just feel like with encryption and VPNs and cloud processing, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I do think that, I guess yeah, buying a bunch of these might make sense, but you know, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Is cloud infrastructure the way to go? Yeah, I guess it comes down to personal preference and yeah, what people want what works best for them. So, yeah, that's definitely fascinating for sure.
well, and I think this is a good time to say, there is no such thing as the cloud. It's just somebody else's computer. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
at the base stage of it, I mean, you're paying to rent somebody else's computer. So if you're okay with that, then fine, But I think for a lot of organizations, you know, realistically, it's tough to have their stuff, um, you know, as part of this, cloud environment. I mean, it's just sort of very, it's tough, because of the fact that it's like, well, we're uploading basically our entire corporate organization to somebody else's computer. And it's like, I'm not comfortable with that. And I feel like, especially for a lot of, some entities, they legally cannot do that. It needs to be on site. It's like health information. I mean,
Yeah.
sure, there's like some sort of cloud that supports, the regular, it's just sort of like, well, you don't have to worry about any of that if you just, you know, buy one of these for every hospital and just use it to diagnose, or at least flag stuff for doctors to look at, so they're not like, after an 18-hour shift, they're not having to look through things,
Sure, it's processed or on the cloud or yeah, I can see that. Well, yeah, it's cool. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how companies and how businesses and how individuals utilize this new digits AI computer. So it's super interesting. Lots coming out of CES. One of my companies I'm looking forward to. Have you heard of BIA Sleep? They're like a neuroscience company. I know they're at CES.
so
I got an email
BS
today
leak.
from it's called BIA, BIA, BIA Sleep.
Oh, BS leak. Okay,
BIA
they really
Sleep. Yeah.
gotta they gotta figure that out, man.
BIA, BIA, yeah. Their website's getbia.com. But anyway, BIA. They sent an email saying they're at CES. Come say hello. I'm not at CES. Neither are you. So we're just following remotely. But yeah, they're a neuroscience company. They make. I'm excited. There's all sorts of technology from AI stuff to the science of sleep, and they do neurofeedback based on your sleep stage. So think of it kind of like from my understanding, it's like an Apple Watch and an Oura Ring kind of combined with brain measurements using something called FNIRS. I'm not quite sure what that stands for, but it's like FNIRS. I think it's kind of sensing like pulses to estimate what sleep stage you're in signals from your brain. I'm not really sure how it works, but anyway, it's sleep technology. So it takes that brain measurement and kind of gives your body relaxing ways to fall asleep or something like that. So yeah, anyway, it's pretty cool. There's this company I'm familiar with that I can't wait for their little thing to come out. I'm looking forward to getting it.
Well, you can buy it right now if you believe in it. I mean, shoot,
You
it's the early
pre-order.
bird.
Yeah, you can pre-order it. Yeah, it's not available yet, but it's coming soon. Coming
Oh, I
soon.
see.
They've
Okay.
raised. It's a pre-order. Yeah, it's coming soon, and they do raise their prices over time. So I do believe it'll be more expensive when it comes out. But um, yeah, I am excited for this. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff at CES. And then of course self-driving cars are also a big market, and lots of talk about that at CES. Of course,
Yeah, I
lots going
guess.
on.
I mean, a big event or a big announcement on that front is Nvidia is collaborating with Toyota, sort of on their next generation of self-driving AI. I don't know what you were looking at, but I know that was a big announcement from that. You know, just sort of that partnership. Basically, a next generation, Toyota self-driving cars will sort of use a purpose-built automotive quote unquote supercomputer running Drive OS. Um, but I think that was an intriguing announcement. Not to make this all about Nvidia, but there's kind of one name in the game right now as far as being on the cutting edge. I mean, they just simply have a monopoly on the hardware right now. And they're really just, I mean, they're kind of hammering it home. I mean, they're just kind of taking a victory lap at this point. Um, just given the really the advancement.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of cool things. I mean, I think self-driving, we're already seeing it. So it's in front of people in Phoenix and San Francisco and LA and coming soon to other cities. But I think it's kind of scary. I mean, I don't think they're the best. I think there's a lot of caution people need to have when it comes to these types of self-driving this type of self-driving technology. And so I think, yeah, I mean, Toyota, they do things differently. So it will be interesting to see how they can do it. Maybe I don't really know, but I'm not very impressed with the Waymo. I don't know how I mean, it's cool, but I've seen so much from these cars that just drive through accidents. They don't go around them. They go
They power
through
through,
lights.
baby.
Like it's kind of amazing that, like, and I don't know if it's like a delay in processing or just how they were trained, or I mean, I don't know. I don't get it, but wow, like it blows me away. And when I see it, yeah, it just makes me wonder, like, how did these things get approved like this quickly? Like they're not even like, it'd be one thing if it was like in one city in a certain area, but when you see these mistakes these cars are making in many cities, I mean, I just think they're expanding too quickly. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Toyota and Nvidia, do it. And I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm sure Google and Waymo have built their own chips and technology, but they definitely need. Yeah, I don't know if it's like more processing, like in real time. I don't know if it's a problem with the sensors. I don't know if it's just like, it just doesn't care as long as it makes it to where it needs to go. I just have a feeling that these companies are prioritizing profits. Like, I'm sorry, but they need to get like, look, even from Waymo's perspective, I know this is a little pessimistic, but they want as many customers in their cars as possible. Like, they're obviously subsidizing it with investor money, but they are making money. Like, every day they're collecting payment and they're driving people around. And that car needs to get to its next customer as quickly as possible. And trust me, like, I'm pretty sure they're busy like all the time. They're driving people around. I don't really know how much downtime these cars have, but it's interesting in the driving space too, because I was just taking an Uber actually recently and the other day, and it was an Alto. I don't know if are you familiar with Alto? That it was like it was a rideshare service that paid drivers by the salary. They used white Buick cars, SUVs to pick up and drive around people. And it was definitely a little more pricey than your average Lyft or Uber ride. Waymo is also not that much higher than a Lyft or an Uber. But anyway, it was interesting because I think if I had to assume, I would say with Waymo coming out and undercutting Alto, people just don't really want to pay more for, an employee human to drive them around in a white Buick. They'd rather just take a Waymo that's cheaper. So I really I'm skeptical of how quickly Waymo's expanding and also the pricing strategy of Waymo. Like, I think it's good to have more options. I don't necessarily think it's good, of course, to have more cars on the road. Like, we need to be thinking of other forms of transportation that are sustainable and that can move more people at cheaper prices. But I think that these companies just prioritize picking passengers up, and I think they'll make turns. And I think I don't want to say they're reckless. I mean, I think most of the time they're good. I mean, no human is a perfect driver either, but it's concerning to me how quickly they expand without really addressing footage. Like, there's a lot of footage of these cars having problems and not driving well, and so it's a little concerning to me seeing all of this and just thinking how quickly they're expanding. And I mean, I don't know, like, I don't understand if it's the reason that Alto stopped operating, but I think that that's foreshadowing like this whole industry of just AI taking over, self-driving taking over. And I don't think it's a good thing. Like, I don't think it's a good thing for many reasons, but even software, I don't know if you saw this, Sam, like, speaking of CES, like, software developers, like, if you're planning to be a software developer today in 2025, like, I would not continue. Like, I wouldn't. Like, I mean, AI is going to get there so quickly, and like, it's not even worth learning. Do you agree? Like, it's what the
Well,
future out.
that's the
Like,
kicker, Yeah, I try not to think about it.
because
But
AI
yeah,
models are just going
it's
to be able to get trained.
you know,
Like, that's the thing. AI models are just going to be able to get trained on how to make programs, whether it's from the docs or whether it's from code or whatever. Like, and so I think it's a little concerning, when you know, think of, self-driving, maybe taking Uber and Lyft drivers' jobs, and maybe making companies like Alta go out of business that are employing human drivers. It's a little concerning.
I mean, I'm right there with you. And honestly, it's tough to not be nihilistic about, AI's role, sort of in the, in that sort of, in that timeline. Um, I think about it quite a bit, just because it's something I try to not, think about too much. But honestly, I think you're right. I mean, we're at a point where if you are learning to become, you know, somebody, someone in the coding, I mean, even in cybersecurity, I think about this a lot, where a lot of this stuff is a matter of, applying and, sort of, configuring other pieces of hardware, essentially. I mean, there's there's a lot of tactics and other but a lot of it just boils down to having a properly configured, a lot of this stuff can be automated, and you know a lot of this other stuff too is something where it's like, well, you can basically just have something that is, an offense bot or a defense bot. I mean, a lot of this stuff, again, like it very well may be automated. I mean, one of the Nvidia tools that runs on that desktop supercomputer is sort of an AI model to check to see if a certain vulnerability is able to be exploited in a containerized application. And that's, again, like, if a cybersecurity auditor was auditing your app, that's basically what they would do. They would check to see if you are susceptible to a certain vulnerability. And so there it is. I mean, that's like, and these are high paid white collar professionals, again, and that's like very basic. But also, that's a function of what you are supposed to be doing as a cybersecurity professional. So it's sort of like, well, yeah, I mean, what do you do at that point? Simply because it's, it's not a simple, like, it's not simple to switch your career, overnight, right?
Yeah.
So it's just sort of like, at this point, it's hard to know you know, what to really do or think or perform. I mean, it's something where, I mean, it's tough. I mean, it really is tough. And I'm right there with you. I mean, I wouldn't,
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it, honestly, but also I don't have any sort of, I don't really have any sort of alternative, So it's just sort of like, hey, like, don't study this one thing that's, you know,
Yeah, it just makes you wonder, like, how this is really going to progress when people's jobs and technology is just it really is taking over. I mean, I think I saw not long ago, again, with the self-driving cars coming out. Now they're honestly everywhere. Like, every time you're outside you see one, and I think it's scary because you know I don't know how many Uber and Lyft drivers, have gotten displaced, but that's arguably a few thousand people that maybe you've just screwed up their livelihood, and now they either need to find another job that's not going to be taken over by robots, or they're going to have to move away to, a different area for various reasons. And so I don't know. I mean, I think it's, with technology and software becoming, it's not easy, but I think it's like it's going to be replaced by, these sort of cursor tools, and combine that with another thing, and by the time you're over, you can do more in an hour with some AI tools than you could with human developers going back and forth. And so I think it's, these, why learn software engineering, right? Like, at this point. So, and I think this is a few of the many areas that are going to be, taken over. And even in the AI development space, I think it's like, I don't know how many jobs there are for that. Like, it's like, okay, fine. Well, AI is taking the jobs. Well, then might as well learn the AI tool skills, right? Well, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. Like, do they even have a lot of programmers doing things? It's kind of weird. So, yeah, it's fascinating. And I really want one of these. I really want one of these EcoFlow power solar hats, honestly. So at CES, yeah, this just came out. There's a power hat. You can charge your phone from a hat, solar panel built into a hat. It's pretty cool. It's $129, and it looks like a little sombrero, sort of black.
No, yeah, I saw this. I mean, so this is pretty cool. I got so the EcoFlow. It's a solar brimmed hat. And it's of course black in color. But compared to a traditional, basically these solar panels, compared to a traditional black hat, um, you know, that 24% efficiency rate of a, of basically converting, the solar energy to electric energy, that is taken away from the thermal energy generated. So in a way, I mean, it's essentially like somewhat cooler, than a normal, I guess than a standard black hat in that way, which is super cool. Um, I guess, and yeah, with two USB ports, I mean, it's quite an interesting, you know, I guess, again, as with all solar, um, solar products, it does need to be sunny. Um, and I guess, and you do have to spot clean it. Um, but it's super cool, honestly, to
It's a great way. It's a great way
see.
to use the sun's energy from the hat. You're getting sun protection and battery for juice for your phone. Um, yeah, it's a little hard. It doesn't store power, but it's a little hard to understand. It's very efficient, but it does 24% electric energy. Okay, I mean, I don't know. I guess probably an hour or two in the sun, your phone charges. I I mean that's I guess it's about the same as if you were charging at home, right? Like or maybe a little longer. Maybe it takes a little longer. I don't know how many the iPhone 16 Pro Max, is that a 4,000 milliamp hour battery? I wonder.
I want to the Pro Max. I think it's around 45 or 4,800. I'm not entirely sure. Um, you know, but yeah, I guess like 4,500. I guess to make it easy for math sake.
Damn. No, this is a great, yeah, if you're out in the wilderness on hikes, the beach, the pool, not near an outlet, walking the dog, something like that. Yeah, you can fishing, mountain climbing. Yeah, you can charge your phone. Super cool. Super neat. So that's a cool use of yeah, hat. You
It's
can.
a it's an innovative idea. Yeah, I don't. I mean, kudos for for thinking about it. I mean, shoot, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
capture solar energy. Yeah, dual USB-A and USB-C ports, and it's UPF50. So yeah, it gets great sun and UV protection, and available in two sizes, and IP65 waterproof and dustproof. So you can beach, pool, boating, fishing. Pretty neat. Pretty cool. So yeah, we had another story, another tech tip of the day in this new year, our first episode of the new year. Um, we, of course, wildfires here in LA, not where I am, but I guess what all also made the news, that was a big part of the news today, honestly, these fires. But yeah, so Meta is changing their moderation. They're rolling back their moderation strategies, and basically removing the strict third-party moderators that currently, patrol the platform. So I think this also is kind of, laying the path to see what Google and YouTube do. I think that will be really fascinating to see if they follow suit as well. But this really seems to go back to, uh, maybe Trump becoming president, right? Like it seems like Meta just, they were doing that because they had to do it. And it doesn't seem, I mean, I guess, yeah, as a platform, I guess they don't want to do it because it's very tedious to, kind of patrol the platform. So, yeah, this was a big story with, Meta's moderation just kind of, becoming lax. And it's also noticeable as we were talking about people's jobs. Um, they're going to be not paying humans to to be fact checkers. They're going to replace these what they call bias fact checkers. So anyway, they're getting rid of that. Yeah, Facebook and Instagram are getting rid of these fact checkers. Do you have any other parts of this story, Sam?
Well, and I think it is, it's quite curious. I think this is something where it's just sort of like, I don't know, obviously a very politically tight issue. Um, you know, um, I mean, I think it is very much an optics thing. I think from a business perspective, sort of separating it out, you know, from the political, aspects of it. I mean, it's a business preservation activity in some ways, right? It's sort of like, we're going to, essentially separate ourselves from any sort of controversial um positions, and just kind of take the road of laissez-faire, laissez-faire, just sort of like whatever goes goes, whatever happens. It's the easy way out. And from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Just sort of like, we tried this other way, generated a lot of controversy. Um, so, I mean, honestly,
Well, mainly from
you know,
President-elect Donald Trump. I mean, this is a way to cozy up to the incoming administration, and it might have harmful implications for not seeking to hold big tech accountable for what happens on their platforms. So obviously, I think Trump, thinks, oh, it's like censoring the platform, and it's silencing people, but in reality, they're avoiding taking responsibility for hate and disinformation on their platforms. And their platforms, of course, as we always talk about with the algorithms, they just kind of, it's a vicious circle, a vicious cycle of engaging with this hate, and creating this addictive environment that kind of, I mean, we see all these extremists. We see the what just happened in Vegas and in New Orleans with the these cars that are blowing up at the Trump Hotel and running into the Bourbon Street areas, and killing people. I think it's like these fester online a lot of the time. First, where these people are fed, whether it's disinformation or violence and hate speech kind of posts. It's like you're going to get out of these platforms what the user wants, right? And if these users are engaging with these platforms and interacting with accounts that are violent and condemning, supporting these types of activities, I think it's like it's going to be very hard if I think it's going to be bad that they stop moderating the platform. So I
well,
think we're just going to.
a really interesting kind of side note to all of this too, to our viewers, if you're interested. This is a rather underground YouTuber that I've recently discovered, and obviously anything we mention is not a specific endorsement, but I think he does provide some pretty provocative content. Basically, the premise is, two AI models debate controversial issues in essentially a very civil and method, with methodology, and just sort of presenting the points back and forth with opportunities to refute or basically plead their case. And one of sort of the controversial topics that was covered is sort of, should we ban hate speech? And sort of there's an AI model that's for and against this proposition. You can listen to them, and honestly, from an insightful standpoint, provide sort of, at least for your own opinion, gain some ideas of sort of, again, like how both sides present their argument, and also in a very respectful manner and kind of a long form conversation. But his name is John Oluk. Give him a look up on YouTube. He does, it's a very interesting premise. But essentially, more or less every controversial issue you can think of, from, basically, I mean, it's quite, nothing's off limits, because they're just AI models. So they're basically just kind of debating the morality of, several sort of hot button issues. But it gives you an idea of just sort of saying, like, hey, like, these are some very real thoughts and considerations of, if we ban hate speech, yes or no, what, like, what are the pros and cons to that? Because there are some. I mean, it's not just, again, a lot of these things sound good on the surface, right? Is it a slippery slope? Is it something, so yeah, give them a listen. I think, and again, I mean, really every controversial hot button topic issue is covered. We have all the classics: banning hate speech, the death penalty, abortion. But also, these issues are rarely discussed in sort of a civil manner, between humans. So it's almost quite interesting to see both sides presented in a way which is a respectful, 20 to 30-minute conversation. At least it provokes some sort of thinking on the subject.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention that simply because it's such a novel concept. I mean, he has 77,000 subscribers at this point. So he's definitely not a huge presence or anything on YouTube. But I think it really is just sort of, like, again, like really diving into these incredibly difficult concepts to process. I mean, it's just sort of like, it's just sort of like, again, no shortage of controversial issues, but give them a listen. I think, regardless of your opinion, I think it really provides some talking points for both sides. But I just wanted to mention that because banning hate speech is one of the debates, and obviously a very, again, polarizing issue, as we've seen, given this news. And it even incorporates AI, which we talk about weekly. But it's quite interesting to see, AI kind of take on these really challenging moral questions, if even from a curiosity standpoint. So give it a look. I think it's quite interesting. I don't know.
That's cool.
Listen
Yeah,
to it and see what
AI.
you think. Particularly the one on hate speech. Because it kind of relates to exactly what we're saying, is like, well, with no moderation, we can expect, I mean, I think it's a fair thing to say, without without any moderation, we would probably see more hate speech. And like, what are the moral implications of that?
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing to dissect, but we're not a politics podcast, so it's just sort of like, but it's cool that that bridge exists between a lot of human issues and the technology that we use every day at this point, or should be. If you're not using AI, start to use it.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I
there's a
think we're
lot
in
of
a
use.
bubble like that, Jack. But we're very aware of all this stuff. But I think majority of people just don't really know or recognize like what's at play.
Yeah. There's a lot going on. Well, it sounds good. Yeah, lots coming out from CES. We'll have some more news next Tuesday as a final roundup. As always, lots going on, lots of AI, and lots of satellite news. I think we'll have to talk about next week based on the CES. We'll have to see what else comes out. And yeah, we'll be here same time every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for tuning in. And again, don't forget, visit our website at techtalklive.xyz. Sign up for our email updates there and tune in live every week and wherever you get your podcasts to listen to past episodes. That's about it for today.
Yeah, huge news week. As always, we're here every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. We'll be here next week. No more holidays to deal with. I hope you had a good one. We're back 2025, same time next week. I'm Sam.
And I'm Jack. Yeah, we'll see you then. See you next week.